Do you know when two presidents meet and then they sign some piece of paper or something and they shake hands? You know, people say, oh, those two countries now have improved their diplomatic relation or something like that. You know, this word, diplomatic relations. I think that shouldn't be just limited to countries. I think we should sort of strive to implement that shit into our lives as well. Do you know when you're arguing with someone, you're having an argument, you know, you're having a dispute over something. You say something, the other person says something else, and then you argue about it. Instead of being all angry, being like blah, 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 blah in their face, and then they do the same to you or the other way around. Instead of doing that, let them be a fucking moron and shouting in your face and shit. And you strive to be as diplomatic as possible. And how do you do that? By, you know, not shouting at them. Being calm during that situation. You know? Just being calm, responding, yeah. They might curse at you or something. They might insult your family. Whatever the fuck, you know. Everything can happen. Anything can happen during an argument. They might become violent. Obviously, don't just sit there like a fucking idiot, like a pole. Obviously, defend yourself and stuff, but don't hit back. You know what I mean? That sort of shit. Don't strike unless you've been struck. I feel like that's a pretty good rule of thumb. You know what I mean? And just be diplomatic, bro. If there's a way that you can resolve it without violence, without, you know, anything bad, that's better. Even though, yeah, you might feel like a bitch. You might feel like a moron, like, oh yeah, he hit me and I didn't hit him back, or he said something about my mom and I didn't say something back. You might feel like a bitch. But then at the end of the fucking day, who's the better person? Right? Do you really give that much of a shit about being, oh, I'm a you know, fucking strong man, and I fucking told, he said something about my mom, and then I said something about his mom, and then yeah, I'm cool. Like, fuck no. You know what I mean? Just be the bigger person, dude. You know, don't talk back to them. Fucking ignore them if you can. And if you can solve the dispute, you know, in a calm way, in a peaceful way, that's better. Often better than, you know, fighting and shit, because that never fucking leads to anything good. You hit the guy, he falls down, hits his head, and then you're fucking locked up or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't... Violence never fucking leads to good shit. Now, obviously, I don't want you to be a bitch. I want you to be able to defend yourself if necessary. But don't be the guy that, you know, pushes the conflict further. If you're to take an example about the situation right now in Ukraine, I mean, both parties, both NATO and Russia are kind of being, you know, trying to take the dispute further instead of like stepping down on it. Because Russia, obviously, they started the whole fucking thing, even though, you know, NATO expansion, I won't get into the fucking political details. We're just, you know, having a simple example here. But Russia invaded Ukraine. That's obviously a dick move. They kind of started the argument we're talking about. And then, obviously, the other party doesn't want to be a bitch. But they're not going to be a fucking idiot either. So they didn't fucking invade Ukraine back to try to, like, stop the invasion and push it back to the old borders or anything. No. The first thing they did, they pleaded with Russia. They were like, dude, can you please stop this? Can we make some peace talks? Can we, you know? And Russia was like, no, I want to keep invading. And then they kept invading. So then the NATO cunts were like, okay, let's help Ukraine by sending aid and shit. And then back and forth. And these guys are, you know, NATO are pushing for peace talks. And Russia's like, no, I want to keep fighting. And then this fucking party does some shit, and then this party does some shit, and then tensions rise up, and then there's threats of nuclear shit going on, you know. Is that really a fucking good thing? It's not. It's not. That's what happens when both parties carry on the dispute and don't, you know, step back. As I said, don't be a bitch. You know, you don't want to be the guy that loses out. You know? But at the same time, be responsible about that shit. You know what I mean? Make sure that it ends in a positive way. End it as positively as you can. Whatever dispute it may be. We took like some extreme examples right here, but obviously you can apply this to anything, as peaceful as it can be. The smallest disputes and the biggest disputes, pretty much the same. The best course of action is to be diplomatic, strive for peace in whatever it may be. You're not going to be dealing with conflict between two countries, but for example, if your neighbor says something about your dog, like, oh, your dog went under your fence and then chewed up my apple tree or whatever the fuck, or I don't know, fought my dog and then scratched him or whatever. Don't be like, oh, it's your fault for having this broken fence, that whatever, or your dog challenged my dog, or your dog shit on my lawn and blah 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 blah. Don't be like that. Be like, okay, dude, I understand. I'm sorry about my dog. I'll try to keep him under control next time. But make sure you take care of that fence, and also keep your dog, because I've seen him shit on my lawn a couple of times. Just don't be a fucking jerk about it. Don't be a fucking dickhead. Just be a decent human. Apologize if it's your fault, but also be assertive and tell the other person your position in the argument, Don't be afraid to do that, but do it in a polite way. It's never fucking bad to be polite. Be as polite as you can in most situations. Some situations you have to be a bit of a dick, if you're, I don't know, being shot at, boom, boom, boom. If you're being punched or whatever, you can be a fucking dickhead and shout at him or whatever. I'm giving bullshit examples, but you know what I mean. There are situations where you need to be a dick, but in most situations, just be a polite person and everything's gonna be fine. You know what I mean? But yeah, I fucking gave all the examples that I could, but you pretty much get the idea. Just be diplomatic, don't be a dickhead, and everything is gonna be nice. So yeah, remember you only live once. Spread positivity, not negativity. Don't be a dickhead, and so other people won't treat you, with dickheadness, karma and shit. So yeah, fucking see ya. Bye bye.